has actually set the tone for the discussion today. So what I'll do is, I have been asked by Mr. Esas to speak on Bangladesh. I must confess that, and I must actually not confess, I must actually say that for a long time, I was actually looking for a platform, but though I sort of, work on Bangladesh, I track Bangladesh developments very, very closely, and I was starting from 2010. I was actually very interested to sort of, discuss some of these ideas, some of these developments in Bangladesh, what is happening, especially after there is a revocation of ban on Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh. This ban was imposed on the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh on 2013, August 1st, that it would not contest for any election in Bangladesh. Okay. So now in June, what we saw, there was a massive rally in the streets of Dhaka, in Rajshahi, in Cox's Bazar, all these areas, where the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh actually held its first political rally, what they say, after maybe 10 good years, right? So what implication it has on the already a radicalized society? I would not call a country, because that's only the political component of it. One has to understand jihad and radicalism. One has to also understand the social sources of this radicalization. It's not merely a political agenda. This is also a way of life of a particular community, right? So that said, what I'll do is I'll just take you through what I have titled this presentation is Jihadist Militancy in Bangladesh, Implications on India. And could you please go to the next slide? The structure of the presentation, the major themes that I'll be actually discussing with you people here is, one, I'll just put the Bangladeshi jihadist militancy in a context. Okay, then I'll just take you through the genesis of this jihadi militancy in Bangladesh. Then I have actually, what I've done is, like, I have actually limited this thing starting from 2009, because 2009 is a watershed moment in the Bangladesh political kind of development. From there, I'll just take you through how there was a lull in the form of the activities of the militant groups, but how they have regrouped and sort of capitalized the inaction or the actions of the Sheikh Hasina government, and how they regrouped and researched again. Okay, then I'll just take you through the major jihadi groups in Bangladesh, what the cyber aspect the chair was actually mentioning, and the previous speaker was also hinted upon a bit. There also, I'll just tell you how Ansarul Islam Bangladesh is one group that is actually taking advantage of the cyberspace, and how it is radicalizing the young and the youth in Bangladesh. Then the last slide and the last point we'll discuss about the implications on India. Okay, that is where I'll come. What is the transnational kind of connection of Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh and the Jamaat-e-Islami Hind here? Then the PFI thing was also mentioned. I'll just elaborate a bit, and I know that there is a speaker, or Vicky is there, who will be talking about the PFI and the CINI and all that. Okay, next slide, please. Talking about Bangladesh, my interest with Bangladesh started from 2009-10, when I joined Institute for Conflict Management, and my director, Mr. Ajay Sahani, who actually asked me to go and meet Mr. Hiranmay Karlekar. Okay, and in a way, you can say that he's my guru, making me understand what Bangladesh is from the radical Islam and the militancy point of view, right? So the seminal book that Hiranmay sir has actually come up with, okay, those days, it's called Bangladesh, the next Afghanistan. Okay, let me start my presentation around keeping Afghanistan, okay, not as a coincidence, but as a major focal point of my presentation and its connection with Bangladesh. If you remember, the very ostensible kind of participation of Bangladesh Mujahidins, okay, the Bangladeshi Mujahidins in the larger transnational jihad, what they say, was the beginning point of the when they joined Afghanistan for the so-called anti-Soviet campaign. right? The so-called anti-Soviet campaign kind of thing. And Bangladesh, more than more than India, some 3,000 Bangladeshis directly. These are reported. 3,000 Bangladeshis actually went to Afghanistan and fought alongside Al Qaeda, Taliban, and all sorts of forces, Islamic forces there. And that was the beginning of transnational kind of jihad in Bangladesh. But not to say that this was the root. The root of Bangladesh jihad, it can go back to the partition of Bengal 1905. That was the time when the Muslim League was formed. That was the time a lot of things, the two-nation theory was getting kind of, very popular. And that was the time a lot of kind of Islamic schools were getting assertive in India. Okay, and the root of Bangladesh jihad, or the sentiment jihad kind of indoctrination actually goes there. But then, keeping Afghanistan as one of the focal points, you remember in 2000, in 1980s, when the Bangladeshi Mujahideens went there, to a point when the Taliban has actually taken over Afghanistan, what has happened in Bangladesh. Okay, that is why, just to provoke your mind, to ring a bell in your mind, so I just put the Afghanistan coincidence. We are discussing at a time when the Jihadi Islam in South Asia, in that larger context. Let's see what is happening in our surrounding. In our surrounding, back home here, we have like the Popular Front of India. Okay, after the banning of the Popular Front of India, I can tell you with authority that I was one of the victims of the Popular Front of India when I wrote in 2010 a piece in the IDSA. They had the audacity to get into the buildings of the IDSA and threaten me. Okay, the presently who are arrested, Rahiman and this professor called Professor Koya and all these people, they went inside my kind of cabin in IDSA. I was a research associate at that time, and they threatened me, but that didn't stop me. So I wrote as a full-fledged, I was the first one to call them a militant group way back in 2014. You can read this in my book on militant groups in South Asia, right? So that is back home. Okay, we thought, okay, the Indian Mujahideen is over the, after the arrest of Yasin Bhatkal, but then we see and we witness the new forms of terrorism that has actually emerged in India in the names of riots. Okay, starting from Delhi to the Hijab Rao in Karnataka. I'm here in Karnataka in Bangalore, to the coastal towns of Karnataka, then in Kerala, then in parts of Darbhanga and UP, you name the place, the farmer agitation, the so-called farmer agitation and all that, right? In Pakistan, what we are witnessing that is the government, the civilian government has been defunct. The army is actually looking very vulnerable. Okay, we are seeing how the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan, the TTP, is actually controlling the kind of, it is actually attacking the Pakistani security forces left, right, and center. Okay, the vulnerability, the helplessness of the Pakistani security forces has been exposed so pathetically like never before. Afghanistan is everybody's kind of knowledge. We know what has happened in Afghanistan. Okay, at the same time, the fundamentalist forces have actually come back to power in Maldives. Okay, then we have a situation in Bangladesh. Bangladesh, under a secular government of Awami League, a lot of these jihadi militancy kind of activities have gone overlooked, or they have not actually caught the attention of the scholars and the policymakers. Okay, that is where I think, to put the Bangladesh into context, we should also know that how it actually operates, how it actually interacts with the activities of radical jihadi militancy elsewhere in the subcontinent, right? So the foundation of Islamic radicalization in Bangladesh, one can actually go back to the role of Jamaat-e-Islami killing millions of people, okay, during the liberation war. Okay, this was nothing but asserting the supremacy of one form of Islam, right? And then what we have seen, starting from the formation of Bangladesh, and there are the domination of two parties, and this extremely polarized in and around secularism versus radical Islam. Okay, and the role of Jamaat-e-Islam Bangladesh has been very, very substantial in polarizing the politics in Bangladesh. In that process, what we have also witnessed that the youth of Bangladesh, starting from the cricket team to many other kind of things, that you cannot with authority say that they have been immune to some sort of radicalization or the other. What we have seen in 2009, the Pilkhana mutiny, the BDR mutiny, what we say, that there was a serious kind of a concern by the Bangladeshi government that the security forces has been actually radicalized like never before. Okay, and that was the time there was a plot to kill Sheikh Hasina. Okay, somehow she survived. Okay, that was his her kind of cleverness or the farsightedness. She sort of survived. But then that actually forced the Bangladesh government to actually force resign some 300, 400 kind of security officers. Okay, but then when it comes to the implications of India, one thing that is a very supremacist Islamic kind of tone of all these jihadi thing that is very, very natural. That is that requires a no-brainer. But if you read it very carefully, their documents, okay, there is a rabid anti-India agenda that it's very much it's an inhabitable part of these groups. Okay, kindly see my book on militant groups in South Asia. There, the HUGB and the JMB, I have written their objectives, quoting directly from their kind of documents. You will see that they say that they want to establish a caliphate, they want to establish a ummah, but at the same time, the very next sentence would be that you need to also target the Hindu India. Okay, that is why all these groups, if you see, now starting from HUGB and the JMB, JI, okay, these three, especially these three kind of groups, their major target always been the Bangladeshi Hindus. Okay, I'll come to that. Okay, 2013 and 2016, what happened? Next slide, please. So what is the genesis? The genesis is undoubtedly the fountain source of Islamic extremism is Jamaat-e-Islam. I'll not get into that, the role of Maududi, political Islam, Hakimi and all those things. That is a discussion of another kind of thing. The Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, after it actually became an independent state in 1971, the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh became the undisputable kind of father figure, fountainhead of the Islamic extremism in Bangladesh. And it proved its kind of undisputable kind of role, the kind of massacre it was involved in during the Liberation War. Lots of people had killed, and people say the Motiur Rahman Nizami, okay, Said Delwar Hussain, or Abdul Qadir Mullah. These are the kind of figures. They were recognized by the number of people they killed, and the number was not in hundreds. The number was in thousands. The number actually went to lakhs. Okay, and when our visit to Dhaka, some of the friends would say that okay, this is a well where there is the chair is, and there are some thousands of dead bodies are dumped. Okay, and they would take pride, and that is the background in which Jamaat-e-Islami actually emerged as the fountain source of Islamic extremism, Islamic jihadi militancy kind of thing in Bangladesh. And then, as I told you, the anti-Soviet campaign in Afghanistan, and then the return of this Mujahideen. Okay, when they came back in 1991, after the withdrawal of Soviet forces from Afghanistan, then what you saw is the formation of HUGB, HUGB Bangladesh, 1992. And Bangladesh here is talking only about the establishment of a Ummah, Islamic Brotherhood kind of thing, and very much linked to the political Islam ideology of Maulana Maududi. Okay, and a lot of people are confused that okay, this is a Deobandi group, this is a Al-Hadid group kind of thing, but undisputably they are following the teachings of Maududi. Then come 1998, you have the emergence of one of the most deadly kind of a jihadi group in Bangladesh, that was Jamaatul Mujahideen Bangladesh, and it has a super military wing called the JMJB. And that was the time the northeastern part of Bangladesh, which was actually infected by some radical communism. The previous speaker was actually mentioning. This is a very, very, very interesting point the communists should actually understand. The Ganapos, the Bangladesh Communist Party, the Purba Banglar Communist Party, and all these things, where the JMGB was actually given a task by the a Khalida Zia government, and that there's a alliance government between JI and BNP, that to get rid of the communist radicals. And the JMGB was on the task, and they finished off the Purva Bangla Communist Party, the Bangladesh Communist Party, and the Ganapoj. And they would selectively kill them. And as they finish, then you will see the JMGB actually, the entire platform going to a kind of dormancy. Okay, but the JMGB, the Jamatul Mujahideen in Bangladesh, is one of those kind of terrorist groups in Bangladesh where it has a role to establish Islam, the Sharia law and all those things, but at the same time, they have a serious wing that work on the around the anti-India kind of an agenda. Okay, they are the ones who actually work in the border areas of India-Bangladesh border. The enclaves, remember in the enclaves, the kind of atrocities these guys actually, committed with the enclave dwellers before the land boundary agreement was signed between India and and Bangladesh. Okay, Sheikh Hasina and Manmohan Singh. All right. Then another movement that comes in Bangladesh was the Awami League coming back to power in 2009. And this is the time Sheikh Hasina comes all powerful and with the ultimate kind of majority, and Bangladesh, the well-meaning people who are actually looking at some change. But all of a sudden, you actually see there was a mutiny. And the mutiny was by the Bangladesh Rifles. Okay, this is the border guarding force of Bangladesh. Right. And what was the mutiny about? The mutiny about is like, Sheikh Hasina is secular and Sheikh Hasina has to be killed the way they killed her father, Sheikh Mujib. And they need to actually bring back Khalida Zia and other Islamist forces to power. Right. And it was actually colored in such a way that this is the security forces are not happy with the government. This is where Hiranmay Kalekar comes very handy. I'll suggest you to sort of, read him, the way he captured the movement, no other Indian scholars have been able to actually capture. The BDR mutiny actually highlighted the deep-rooted extremist kind of an indoctrination, Islamist indoctrination, even within the security forces. We are talking about how the Pakistan army is all about the representation of Islamic fundamentalism. But the Bangladeshi security forces, for the first time through the BDR mutiny, exposed itself as one of the most radicalized extremist kind of forces. And now, though you are following Bangladesh, you will also see how the Bangladesh border, the Bangladesh border guards actually politicize the entire thing and say that the BSF, the Border Security Force of India, is necessarily a Hindu force. Okay, and some radical like the Hizbut Tahrir, that's a transnational kind of thing, they also sort of supported it and highlighted thing. There was a killing of a particular girl when she was trying to cross over to India illegally. That is the movement. Then the Iron Lady, Sheikh Hasina taking the war criminal kind of trials of beginning and all these kind of peoples I named just before, Motiur Rahman Nizami, Syed Delwar Hussain was actually sentenced to death. And that also is a defining movement of, resurgence of radical elements in Bangladesh. For a time, we all thought that they are going dormant. They have been actually been tackled well. Okay, that was the time in 2012-13, I had written Islamist vestiges in Bangladesh. They went and they became silent for some time, but then they actually came up. 2013, just before the banning of the Jamaat-e-Islami, you see how many Hindu Bangladeshi houses were torched, how many, some 80 temples were vandalized on a single day. And then you have the Sahabaga movement, the Hifazat-e-Islami kind of movement. Then came the Rohingya issue. The Rohingya issue is something that is very interesting to sort of discuss for a minute. And this was the time there was a kind of propaganda against the Sheikh Hasina that she is necessarily, or she was necessarily anti-Islam, right? In order to prove her Islamic credentials, she actually allowed some 10 lakh, 15 lakh kind of Rohingyas coming and settling down, right? But then the Rohingya solidarity organizations, then the Arakan Rohingya Salvation Army. Okay, once you are a radical, you are always a radical, right? However vulnerable you are. Okay, you look at the Rohingyas, the way they behave in India. So this worked as a multi-edged sword against the Sheikh Hasina government and for the Islamist. Okay, so they actually recruited a lot from the Rohingya youth. At the same time, they also posed a kind of thing as a threat, destabilizing, putting the Sheikh Hasina government into a fix that they are not able to take care of the local administrations in Bangladesh. Next slide, please. Okay, so let me now come. Okay, this is the brief kind of history, but I am not doing justice because the time is less. Okay,
Dr. Behera.
Yeah.
Can I also request you to cover the PFI and SIMI?
I'm coming to that.
Because that speaker is he is not attending today, so
yeah.
We would like you to cover that also.
Yeah, cover, like I'll just touch it upon briefly because 2:45 I have another.
Yes, okay. Kindly do touch upon it.
Yeah, very quickly. Okay, what are the major jihadi groups in Bangladesh? The JMB is something that I'll say that is the most dreaded one. Okay, but at the same time, there's one particular group I am to draw your attention. That is Ansarul Islam. Okay, earlier it was called Ansarul Bangladesh, but then you see there is also a jihadist tone when they change Ansarul Islam to Ansarul Bangladesh to Ansarul Islam. Okay, so that is where you see it began as an online group, urban-based, online group, and the only task was that during 2012, 2011 especially, there was a proliferation of bloggers in Bangladesh. Yeah, these bloggers used to actually raise some very liberal kind of topics, talking about literature, modernity, talking about smoking around, drinking, all those kind of things. A bit of very liberal, open culture kind of thing. Then also asking about questioning the radical Islam. Okay, and that was the time this particular Ansarul Bangladesh actually emerges, and it actually issues threats to these secular liberal bloggers and intellectuals. Starting from Dhaka University, Rajshahi University, they would go and target them. And in that process, they have also killed a lot of foreigners who used to visit. Okay, and they used to write in favor of Sheikh Hasina. This is the group which would actually issue them threatenings. Okay, and this group has become so big now, okay, that the 2016 Cafe Blast, if you remember, if your mind serves you well, your memory, this is the group which actually radicalized. Of course, the Zakir Naik and all those teachings are there, the foundation. But this is the particular group actually, ignited, provoked those young, and those young minds are not coming from this theory that poverty leads to violence, poverty leads to terrorism. This has been debunked by a lot of people. I also don't believe in that. Okay, some of the ministers' sons, some MLA sons are actually, involved. Politicians' sons are actually, coming from very high-fi family. Guitar playing, smoking ganja, those kind of people coming there, right? So this is the group now in Bangladesh. If you see Ansarul Islam, actually is the role model, hi-fi culture kind of, very modern jihadist group, I can say. Okay, they sound very contradictory, but I'll call them modern jihadist group because they're tax savvy. The cyber point the chair actually mentioned. Okay, they use the cyberspace to radicalize the people and the target, and they have a wonderful connection with the Hizb ut-Tahrir. Okay, then we come to the JMB. Following the crackdown on the militant groups in Bangladesh, we actually saw the JMB was a run. A lot of JMB militants were arrested, and some of them were sentenced, some were executed. But you'll also remember that most of them actually ran to Indian side, the open border. Okay, and you'll remember by 2013-14 we had the cases coming from West Bengal where the JMB guys were making bombs and it actually blasted, and those reports are also kind of there to your memory. Okay, that was the time India was a safe haven for the JMB. Okay, and I do not want to name the forces who actually supported them in India. You all know that. Okay, in the name of, like, the poor Bangladeshi immigrants, right? We'll come to that. Okay. Then now what we are seeing, a cocktail of Ansarul Islam and JMB has emerged as Neo JMB or the ISIS in Bangladesh chapter. Okay, this is a very interesting group. Okay, 2016, for the first time, I was talking to some of the military people in Bangladesh. They would actually highlight that this Neo JMB has been a buzzword. And what is this Neo JMB? It has its root in the post-2016 Dhaka terror incident, and it talks about the Islamic State of Bangladesh. Islamic State of Bangladesh, it talks about, right? So when Salahuddin, the Amir, the chief of JMB, was asked a question that how would you respond to this Neo thing? He sort of, he said, no, it doesn't make any sense. But he was very profoundly acknowledging that our cadres will be very proudly have joined ISIS. 2018, 2019, a lot of this encrypted kind of messages the JMB were actually getting from ISIS in Syria. There's Bangladeshi fighters who are there, Mujahideens who are there. The Bangladeshi intelligence was finding it difficult to decode them, right? But then we come to the fountain source of the Islamic Jihad radicalization in Bangladesh. Undoubtedly, it is the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, right? The role, it has a prominent role, okay, starting from the rickshaw pullers in Dhaka city to the students of Dhaka University. It is symbolically, I'm telling you, okay, where there was a time when they are banned in August 2013, okay. You should have seen the site in Dhaka city. How the poor rickshaw, the so-called poor rickshaw pullers actually agitated. Because the economy of Dhaka city is actually controlled by Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh. The private universities are actually controlled by Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh. You name any city, any town in Bangladesh, you will see that the kind of madrasas, okay, the faithful education, that is this book. I request all of you to kindly go through that book, okay, Riaz Ahmad's book, okay. That is where you'll see how Jamaat-e-Islam actually has penetrated into the minds of the youth there, okay. Its role in war crimes during the Liberation War, the trials. And now what is interesting is that it was banned in 2013, and now Sheikh Hasina government is under tremendous pressure, and accordingly they have actually revoked the ban. And the first rally was actually held in June, July, 2023. This has, and Bangladesh is going to election this December. Yeah, what will be the fate of Sheikh Hasina? Sheikh Hasina is there for last 15 years. There is it is an anti-incumbency. There is a lot of kind of thing. Bangladesh is not post-COVID. It is not doing well economically, right? Another economic boom that we discussed maybe 3-4 years before, Bangladesh is no longer the same. So if at all, and the Americans have also shown some displeasure with Sheikh Hasina. That is the reason a lot of scholars from Bangladesh actually claim that was the reason why Sheikh Hasina actually revoked the ban on the Jamaat-e-Islami. And Jamaat-e-Islami, given their kind of power in terms of their social base in Bangladesh, if they come to power along with the BNP, you know the story. You don't need me to tell how radical Bangladesh is going to be. Okay, and Hiranmoy Kalekar will sound prophetic that time that it is going to be the next Afghanistan, if not completely the way the Taliban is that, but you will see some sparks of Afghani culture, the Taliban culture there, right? So can you go to the next slide? Okay, and this is this I had kept it open. Okay, the implications. Let me tell you, the young scholars who are here. Okay, you should not be confused that the Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh and the Jamaat-e-Islami Hind. Okay, there is any difference between these two. Yeah, we should not be confused. And Jamaat-e-Islami Hind has played a very subtle way. Okay, if I tell you that PFI is basically a Jamaat-e-Islami Hind organization, how many of you will be surprised? The young people who have not actually followed them, you will be surprised. But you check the Popular Front of India's kind of registration and all that, you will find it is registered in Delhi, okay, under the name of Jamaat-e-Islami Hind. It is basically a Jamaat-e-Islami Hind kind of organization. So the Islamic Chhatra Shibir, okay, that was the student organization, or that is the student organization of Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, and their link with SIMI and the student Islamic kind of organization, that is another student wing of the predecessor or the earlier version of SIMI. Yeah. You will see that the Islamic Chhatra Shibir, that is the student organization, student front of the Bangladeshi chapter of Jamaat-e-Islami, and our SIMI and SIO, there is a strong link. Okay, and the activities of these three are almost the same. Now the PFI, if you have the kind of things happening in Pakistan, you have in Afghanistan. Now you see, if at all Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh comes to power, we have banned the PFI, but as the previous speaker was mentioning, okay, banning doesn't actually keep them away from politics. Right, and it doesn't keep them away. SDPI, their political wing, that is still a registered political party in India. That is the irony. It's laughable. Okay, we have not been able to ban them because our democratic kind of thing doesn't allow them. I do not know what are the other compulsions. But then, okay, you say in one hand the PFI is banned. Of course, you have arrested 200, 300 of them. But then what about their other cadres? Okay, and they are actually operating in different names. I had given a list to a lot of scholars. Okay, in my book also you can read. I have also written in IRF. Kindly go back and read this thing. Okay, only a ban will not help in any manner. Okay, now how powerful they will be if Jamaat-e-Islami actually comes back to power. Okay, then the infiltration. Have we been being able to check the infiltration from Bangladesh? I just came from Assam. I was there for 15, 20 days. There are certain districts in Assam where the demography has changed, like, you will not imagine to what extent it has changed. Okay, places like Morigaon and all that, where, the 80% of the population have become Bangladeshi immigrants, forget about Muslims. Okay. For the first time, we are getting reports from Assam where the Assami Muslims have started fighting with the Bangladeshi Muslims. Okay, and that has become the kind of thing. Then, if this thing actually something goes wrong with Sheikh Hasina, because Sheikh Hasina is also facing a serious corruption charges, right? And something goes wrong with Sheikh Hasina, Jamaat-e-Islami comes to power, and JMB actually start working. Okay, at the very, very openly, the way it was working before 2009, and the infiltration story and what kind of security implications will have. So as I said, I actually written to me the title that I saw the final this thing. Does NRC offer a solution? No. The NRC doesn't. The first thing is that we do not have a consensus around NRC. We as Indians, forget about the party politics. We as Indians, we have not been able to come to a consensus to think that the Bangladeshi illegal immigrants are a threat to the nation. It's not a threat to a particular political party. The political parties who are speaking in favor of these kind of people who have come and changed our demographic like never before, once they become consolidated, they actually hold their ground. They will be the ones first bite them. They don't realize all these things. The Germans, you ask the Poland people, ask the Germany. I was in Germany. The so-called refugees. The Islam after the Syria war and all that, when they came to Germany and they opened the door with opened arms, they come. Okay, and now the refugees everywhere. It is Islam is our right. Even if we are refugee, you will have to sort of protect that. Okay, what will happen to that? Okay, so the NRC could actually, I don't think, first the thing is, in order to have a kind of meaningful NRC, there has to be a lot of kind of, homework. There has to be a lot of kind of a consensus building exercise by the ruling regime and the opposition. You can have your fightings on things, caste line and all those things are fine. But on these issues, for heaven's sake, if you do not have a consensus, if you think that you will implement an NRC, how would you implement an NRC if you do not have a consensus? Even if you implement an NRC, what happened in Assam? The judiciary took the kind of responsibility of implementing NRC. Then what happened? They miserably failed. People didn't go. Okay, there are so many problems in the execution of that NRC that it made a mockery of itself. Right. But then, to come back to the topic, I do not have sufficient answer as us on the NRC issue, but these are my limited points. But then, as the developments are actually unfolding in Bangladesh, it is going unnoticed. Unnoticed to the extent we think that there is a secular government and all that. The secular government is actually second out. The secular government is not able to protect its secular credentials anymore. It is also behaving to prove itself are more Islamic than the Islamic forces. In that condition, okay, any sort kind of jihadi kind of militancy problem in or development in Bangladesh will have serious implications on to the security aspects of India. I thank you for your kind of opportunity to speak. If I have actually not been able to cover some of the things, it's because only for the shortage of time. Maybe some other time we'll actually sit together and discuss this thing. And thank you.